Do you ever feel guilty for not feeling loved by the person who was supposed to love you the most? That question can sting, and maybe it hurts because deep down, you've silently asked yourself the same thing. Society has built an almost untouchable myth that every mother loves, protects, and cares unconditionally. Maternal love is portrayed as instinctive, flawless, and unwavering. But what if it isn't? What if your relationship with your mother left behind traces of absence, rejection, coldness, constant criticism, or excessive control? Is that still love? Many people grow up believing their pain is just drama, ingratitude, or oversensitivity. They learn to swallow their tears, downplay their own experiences, and smile while carrying an invisible weight. But denying that pain only prolongs suffering. It's time to break the silence, and more importantly, to challenge the myth. Mother wounds are real. They don't start with you, but they can end with you. Today, I'll guide you in recognizing this emotional wound and offer practical steps to begin freeing yourself from it. By the end of this video, I'll also give you a challenge that could completely transform your story, just as it transformed mine. The mother wound isn't just a sad memory. It's like an invisible scar etched deep into our psyche, present since childhood. It emerges when, for any reason, the mother couldn't provide the affection, attention, or care the child needed. Sometimes this is because she herself was hurting. This wound can be categorized into two main types: the active wound and the subtle wound. The active wound is more visible, stemming from emotional, physical, or verbal abuse, neglect, abandonment, or direct violence. It leaves clear marks and is often recognized as trauma. The subtle wound is harder to identify, but equally harmful. It appears in cases of overly protective, controlling, or hypercritical mothers who offer conditional love or reverse roles, treating their child like a best friend. In these situations, the child grows up believing they must earn love. It's a sweet poison, seeming care that distorts a child's sense of self. Authors like Peg Streep in Mean Mothers and Alice Miller in The Drama of the Gifted Child show how these experiences create patterns that extend into adulthood, especially if left unacknowledged. Carl Jung adds a symbolic perspective. The mother is the first image of the world. When that image fails, the child doesn't just feel pain. They construct an inner world where love is unstable, affection is dangerous, and the self must constantly adapt to survive. Emotionally, it's like the ground beneath your feet is cracked. You walk, live, and love, but always with the fear of falling. Understanding this wound is the first essential step toward healing. Not to blame, but to name what hurt. Once it is named, it can be embraced. Naming the wound reveals how it spreads through your life in ways you may not even notice. Subtle, invisible injuries that still bleed today. You might spend years feeling something is wrong with you without realizing this unease comes from an old, unacknowledged wound. The mother wound, especially when unnamed, disguises itself in behaviors that seem like personality traits, but are actually defense mechanisms built to cope with unreliable love. Perhaps you struggle to trust others, constantly expect betrayal, or fear abandonment. This distrust may not originate from romantic relationships, but from childhood experiences where your mother's love was unstable, conditional, or unpredictable. Maybe you don't even trust yourself. You feel inadequate, always needing approval or validation. This insecurity often stems from mothers who were overly critical, demanding perfection, and subtly implying that mistakes meant losing love. If setting boundaries feels impossible, if saying no brings guilt, or if you accept hurtful behavior to maintain peace, these too may be emotional inheritances. Many children were taught, implicitly or explicitly, that love came only with obedience, sacrifice, or self-erasure. A distorted self-image, fear of being seen, shame about your body or voice, these are all marks of a childhood where being yourself didn't feel safe. Fears in relationships, difficulty giving or receiving love, originate not in the present, but in a past, where love often meant pain and affection was followed by rejection. Hypersensitivity, the feeling that everything hurts more for you, isn't weakness. It's adaptation. A nervous system trained early to detect even the smallest signs of rejection. Repeating emotional patterns, seeking the same types of partners, or enduring the same cycles of pain isn't bad luck. It's your unconscious attempting to heal a past wound through your present. All these wounds share a common root, something planted in your earliest years, still shaping how you love and how afraid you are to love. From your first days, all you needed was a look that said, "You're safe here." How that look was given or withheld shaped far more than you realize. It shaped how you connect with the world, how you see yourself, and how you relate to others. This is attachment. Attachment theory explains how emotional bonds formed in childhood shape responses throughout life, with the mother often as the central figure. Consistent affection and predictability create secure attachment. Trust in others, self-worth, and safety in expressing oneself. Unstable, cold, or absent love produces insecure attachment, where the mother wound silently infiltrates relationships. Anxious attachment arises when love is unpredictable, sometimes present, sometimes critical, sometimes distant. Adults with anxious attachment live on edge, fearing abandonment, loving too much, demanding too much, or shrinking themselves to avoid loss. Avoidant attachment develops when emotional expression doesn't help. Cold, rigid mothers who invalidate feelings produce adults who distance themselves, run from intimacy, and use control as protection. Disorganized attachment is a mix of extremes, arising when a mother is both a source of love and fear, as in abuse or emotional violence. Children grow up confused, unsure whether to approach or retreat, leading to chaotic relationships, self-sabotage, and deep self-doubt. All these patterns stem from one source: the quality of the bond with the mother. The wound comes not only from what happened, but also from what was missing: the embrace that never came, the silence that lasted too long, the words left unsaid. Importantly, these patterns are not a life sentence. They're a map. Recognizing your attachment pattern helps explain why certain relationships hurt and why you might remain stuck despite the pain. Inside you lives an image of your mother that goes beyond the woman who raised you, a psychic presence that whispers, judges, and silences, often harsher than reality. When thinking of mothers, we picture the real woman, but deeper exists the internal image formed through experience. Carl Jung called this the archetype of the Great Mother, a symbol of care and danger present in the collective unconscious. The archetypal mother has two sides: a light side of nurture, comfort, and unconditional love, and a dark side of control, guilt, and abandonment. When the real mother wounds us, the internal image often becomes dominated by the dark side. Even after leaving home, this inner presence may still judge, demand, and silence, repeating messages like, "You're not enough," and "You must please to be worthy." At this stage, the wound no longer depends on the mother. It lives within, a silent emotional recording stuck on repeat. That is why healing the mother wound doesn't require your mother to change. It requires transforming the inner world shaped by her presence. Healing the mother wound depends on transforming your inner mother. This is one of the most liberating insights in depth psychology. As long as you believe your happiness depends on your mother's approval, you remain trapped. But when you realize that what truly holds you back is the internal image of her, the psychic presence you carry, healing can begin. Transformation doesn't require changing who she was. It begins by reshaping how you relate to that inner presence. Think of it as renovating the emotional house you live in, replacing suffocating walls with open windows, pressure with compassion, fear with strength, and silence with listening. This disconnection didn't happen overnight. Little by little, you put on masks, silenced parts of yourself, and hid pieces of who you were until you forgot your own face. From early on, you learned to become someone else to be accepted. Over time, you created a persona, a social mask. This version of yourself smiles when you want to cry, says, "I'm fine" when you're falling apart, and strives to meet others' expectations, even at the expense of your true self. Jung called this mask the persona. It's not fake, but it is incomplete. It helps you navigate the world, but over-identifying with it causes you to forget your real self. Often, this persona was shaped by your relationship with your mother. You became the easy child, the daughter who avoids conflict, the adult who seeks validation unconsciously. Meanwhile, everything that wasn't accepted, anger, sadness, fear, desires, was pushed into the shadow. The shadow is the basement of the unconscious, where parts of yourself deemed unacceptable were locked away. What's repressed doesn't vanish. It returns as anxiety, guilt, self-sabotage, recurring relational patterns, or sudden emotional outbursts. At the center of this is the mother complex, a set of unconscious emotions and memories revolving around the mother's image. When triggered, it can make you feel like the lost child you once were, craving love or attempting to fill a void that was never addressed. These mechanisms pull you away from your true self, keeping you reactive, trying to avoid pain or earn love that may never come. The love you seek externally can only arise when you reconnect with what was left behind. Recognizing your persona is the first step in removing the mask. Facing your shadow is how you reclaim your strength. Understanding your mother complex helps you see when reactions are rooted in past pain, not present reality. This is not just about your relationships. It's about your relationship with love itself. How you love today may reflect what you learned from her. You may think you're choosing your partners freely, but often it's the internalized image of your mother guiding those choices. Jung explained that everyone carries a contrasexual archetype. Men have the anima, an inner feminine, while women have the animus, an inner masculine. These archetypes are shaped by childhood relationships with the opposite sex parent. In cases of the mother wound, this influence is profound. Men hurt by unstable maternal love often develop a wounded anima, unconsciously drawn to emotionally unavailable or demanding women, seeking the acceptance they lacked. Women, in contrast, may develop a negative animus, a critical, authoritarian inner voice shaped by expectations reinforced by their mother. This wounded animus manifests as harsh self-criticism, self-sabotage, and attraction to domineering or indifferent partners. These archetypes are symbolic forces shaping how we give and receive love. Until these internal images are healed, love will continue to carry pain. Recognizing that you've been loving from a place of wounding allows you to begin loving from awareness, without trying to fix, control, or repeat the past. There is another, subtler wound: the narcissistic mother. This wound is wrapped in care, but poisoned with control. Not all narcissistic mothers are overtly harsh. Many are socially polished, but create emotionally suffocating environments where the child exists only as an extension of her. Love is conditional. You only receive it if you please her, meet expectations, and don't threaten her ego. Daughters may experience competition, criticism, and diminished validation. Sons may encounter emotional seduction, smothering their autonomy. This dynamic teaches children to live for approval, avoid rejection at all costs, and believe they must earn love. Jung noted that when a mother dominates the child's ego, the true self cannot fully emerge. Children raised this way grow up with low self-esteem, fragile identity, and an inner voice repeating critical messages. They live for others, feel guilty for being themselves, and struggle to assert their authentic self. In adulthood, they continue to adapt to others. In work, relationships, and friendships, afraid to take up space or risk rejection. But this psychological prison can be broken. Recognizing the pattern is the first step. Stop waiting for your mother to change. Release the illusion that love will eventually come the right way, and begin rebuilding from the inside. A healthy ego, a self that exists rather than serves. This becomes even more urgent for parents. Without awareness, you may unconsciously repeat these patterns with your own children. Healing is not only for yourself, it's an act of love that can break generational cycles. Many women who carry the mother wound fear repeating past pain with their children. That fear, though painful, signals awareness. Those who repeat patterns without guilt remain asleep. Those who fear repeating are beginning to awaken. No mother emerges from childhood unscathed. Most carry unprocessed pain, unconscious expectations, and inherited patterns. Some project unmet needs onto their children. Others overcompensate, losing themselves in the process. The good news: the cycle can be broken, not through perfection or ready-made answers, but through presence. Being present with yourself is an act of love that resonates with your children. They don't need perfect mothers. They need awake ones who can pause, notice when they're on autopilot, and choose differently. The cycle ends when you treat yourself with the love you never received, forgive past mistakes, and recognize that raising a child is a way to recreate yourself. Motherhood becomes an ongoing practice of emotional responsibility. Holding your pain prevents it from spilling into the next generation. Giving your children space to be themselves, not the person you had to become to survive, breaks the chain. You don't have to carry all of the past. You can lay down the pain that isn't yours. Start anew, and that alone is healing. You cannot change what happened, but you can change the weight it carries in your life. Healing is not about blame or forgetting. It's about transformation. As you explore the mother wound, anger may arise, and it needs to. For too long, you may have justified, rationalized, or stayed silent. Repressed anger can turn into tension, anxiety, or illness. Feeling anger toward your mother does not make you bad. It signals that you're beginning to recognize violated boundaries. However, healing is not about blaming your mother or casting yourself as a perpetual victim. Anger must be felt and processed so it doesn't become another form of emotional dependency. Jung emphasized taking responsibility for your story, not out of guilt, but to gain freedom. Understanding that your mother acted from her own wounds doesn't justify the harm you endured, but it gives you a choice: repeat or transform. Healing begins when you stop waiting for an apology that may never come. Release the expectation that she will change, and choose to give yourself the love that was never offered. A powerful exercise recommended by therapists, psychologists, and family constellation work is writing a letter to your mother. Not to send, but for yourself. Pour out the hurt, anger, grief, guilt, longing, and what was missing. Don't overthink it. Let it flow raw and real. This practice helps uncover long-forgotten memories and recognize recurring patterns. It can reveal how past wounds have shaped your relationships, insecurities, and even financial life. By facing the mother wound in this way, you begin to reclaim your story and your life. I only understood this later, and I saw it clearly because I allowed myself to write without filters. So do it. Just write. Once you've let everything out, absolutely everything, take a moment to thank her for what was possible, for what helped you get this far. Then forgive her. After that, burn the letter. Literally. Turn it into a ritual, a symbolic act of release. I can honestly say the relief I felt afterward was impossible to describe. It was as if a weight I had carried for years finally left my body. From that moment, my life began to shift. It became a turning point. So here's my challenge to you. Write that letter honestly, without holding back. Then come back here and share in the comments how the experience was for you. Sometimes what you write may help someone else who is still suffering in silence. Your story could be the spark someone else needs to begin healing. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's releasing the emotional chain that still binds you to the past. It's ending the struggle with what was, so you can begin living what still can be. The pain may not disappear completely, but it changes form. Instead of a prison, it becomes a story, and from there, a new chapter can be written. There are other practices that help rebuild you from the inside. Therapeutic writing, for example, goes beyond writing to your mother. You can write to your younger self. Imagine yourself at your current age looking into the eyes of the child you once were. What did they need to hear? What was never said? What do they deserve to know? Say it all. Then read it aloud. This begins to reshape the inner image you carry. Another powerful tool is the empty chair technique. Sit facing an empty chair and imagine your mother sitting there. Speak to her. Say what you never could. Then respond as if you were her. Feel whatever arises. Cry, shout, or fall silent. The goal is not logic or debate, but releasing emotional weight stored in the body. Meditation with archetypes can also help. Visualizing the archetypal mother in her healing form, the one who nurtures, loves, and does not demand, can slowly replace the negative internal image. You can imagine her embracing you, protecting you, and listening. The unconscious understands symbols, and symbols have the power to heal. Jung also proposed active imagination, a method where you engage with parts of your psyche as if they were living characters. It could be the wounded child, the inner mother, or the critical voice. What does it say? How do you respond? These inner dialogues can be deeply transformative. Rebuilding the internal bond also means learning to treat yourself with the care you once hoped to receive from your mother. Setting real boundaries with her, when necessary, is part of that process. A boundary is not punishment. It is protection. Sometimes the most honest form of love is the one that says, "You cannot cross this line anymore." Seeking therapy is another essential path. especially Jungian or integrative approaches that work with unconscious symbols and the rebuilding of the self. This work isn't about blaming your mother. It's about finally meeting your pain with adult awareness, courage, and compassion. You don't need to do everything at once, and you don't have to do it alone. Every step you take already begins to shift something inside you. This reconnection has a name in psychology: the process of becoming who you were always meant to be, not a role shaped by pain, but your whole self. The mother wound, no matter how deep, does not define you. It may have influenced your path, but it does not have to determine your future. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your true self by integrating everything that was rejected, forgotten, or distorted to gain approval. Individuation is not about perfection. It's about wholeness. It means embracing both your light and your shadow, your pain and your strength. It's realizing that while the wounded child still lives inside you, there is now an adult who can protect them. This journey isn't linear. Some days you'll feel free. Other days the pain may return. The difference is that now you understand where it comes from, and you know you have a choice. Individuation requires courage because it often means letting go of identities that were built only to survive. It's like removing a tight outfit you've worn your entire life and finally breathing freely. This process involves acknowledging what was missing, while also creating what was never given. It means reclaiming your voice, your desires, and your right to exist. You are not what was done to you. You are who you choose to become now. When that choice is made consciously, life begins to shift, not because the past changes, but because you no longer identify with it. You stop being a reflection of pain and start becoming the author of your own story. You may have spent years trying to understand why you didn't feel loved, trying to please, adapt, explain, or fit into spaces that were never meant for you. But perhaps now it's time to stop trying. Stop seeking love where it was never available, and begin offering yourself the love you always needed. This isn't easy, because behind that longing is a wounded child who simply wanted to be seen, who hoped for a look, a word, a gesture that would validate their existence. Sometimes that moment never comes. Continuing to search for it where it never existed only keeps you trapped in the same emptiness. You don't need to beg for emotional scraps anymore. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. What you felt was real. The pain you carry is valid, but it doesn't have to run your life. Today, you can choose yourself. Healing the mother wound isn't about cutting ties. It's about breaking illusions. It's about realizing that no matter how painful the past was, the present is still yours. You get to decide how to move forward, with more honesty, presence, and love. The kind of love that supports, protects, and sets you free. You are not alone in this. Many people carry this silent pain, but your willingness to face it already places you somewhere new, a place without shame and without guilt for wanting to be whole. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And perhaps now, you are ready to awaken. Don't wait for the past to validate you. Validate yourself. Don't wait for someone else to love you first. Begin with yourself. A story that began in pain can end in reconnection, and that reconnection starts with you. You can begin right now to build a form of love that no longer depends on approval. A love that exists simply because you exist. If this content stirred something in you, that's already a sign your healing process has begun, and you don't have to go through it alone. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because in the next videos, we'll go even deeper into this topic, with more tools, reflections, and paths to help you reconnect with who you truly are. And if you stayed until the end, I want to ask you one thing. Comment below with the words, "I choose to set myself free." That way I'll know you stayed with me, and more importantly, that you're ready to take this step with awareness. I'll see you in the next video.